In this segment on PCTV, we're going to talk to you about some basic security guidelines that you should be aware of before you go on the internet with your brand new computer to make sure that you're safe and secure and that you're on the internet and not getting yourself in trouble. Now, Jared will tell us why exactly it's very dangerous to go on the internet without these security essentials. Jared?
Well, today with computers and the internet, we have the problem of identity theft. That is where criminals will steal your identity and get access to your bank, your credit card, and anything else. So there's a few basic things you can do when setting up your computer to help minimize your exposure to that. What are the kind of things that we can set up?
I guess the first one would be a complex password. Now, it's important to make a complex password, and Jared will show you how to make a perfectly complex password just using a simple phrase.
Yeah, well, you know, it's not enough these days to have cat, dog, something simple as your password anymore. Now you should really have a minimum of about 8 characters. It should have a combination of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and if possible special characters like commas, exclamation points. Now that can be difficult to remember, but the easiest way to do it is just to pick a phrase that means something to you, like "let me in my computer." Don't use that one. And merely pepper it with uppercase characters, maybe replace an uppercase I with the number 1, put an exclamation point at the end, and just these little changes will make it extremely difficult to break that password and get into your computer.
That's correct. Okay, cool. And so we'll also talk to you about firewalls, we'll talk to you about antivirus software, we'll talk to you about some of the other things that you should really be aware of before you really go out on the internet and expose yourself to possible hacking and identity theft.
We'll base it on Windows 7 today. That seems to be mostly the operating system of choice. Windows 7 comes these days with a very capable firewall. It should be switched on by default. We can show you how that looks on the screen. You'll see a big green tick. If it's not working correctly, you'll see a big red X.
That's right. As a matter of fact, it probably won't let you go through the setup stages if you don't have these things already set up. So unless you sat there and press skip, 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 then these things will probably be on by default, but it's good to check. And so we'll show you how to go through, go into the control panel, find where these places are, and check to see that everything's on and ready and working.
Antivirus is another very important aspect of the computer these days. Well more than half of the nasty things that can happen to your computer are viruses.
And that simply happens just from browsing particular websites. Any old website can have a virus installed just as soon as you click onto it.
That's right. There's web pages that have malicious code. There's email attachments that try and trick you into opening them, saying it's a nice screensaver or something like that. And these are actually delivering a payload that is going to steal your identity. Microsoft offers a good antivirus suite if you have a registered version of Windows called Security Essentials. Very, very good. There's a number. It
comes free, right?
It does come free. Well, you pay for your Windows license, but if you've paid for that, you will get the antivirus software. There's a couple of other free ones.
There's Avira. Avira's a good one with low overhead that we use, AVG and a few others. Of course, a lot of manufacturers will bundle a Norton in there or maybe a McAfee in there and stuff like that. And they can be a little bit tedious, but at the same time, they offer good protection that you can use.
So you can generally get the basic needs from something free. If you want that little extra bit of support or your work requires it, then you can pay a monthly premium or a yearly premium. Then we have the browser, what you actually use to view the internet, and we have a number of flavors on that these days.
Yeah, there's Internet Explorer, there's Mozilla Firefox, and there's Google Chrome. They're the three that we're basically going to review and go over, and you can choose any one of them. They all have their certain attributes that maybe one you prefer a little bit more than the other, or maybe you just prefer the way it looks. Sure. Internet
Explorer is the most popular because that's the one that's part of Windows. It's good. It does the job. A lot of people have a lot of
it's that little
criticisms
E that you see on the screen. The little E in the bottom corner, that's what it is. That's Internet Explorer.
Firefox has become very popular as an alternative. It's considered quite fast. And of course, Google now offers their own browser called Chrome, which now that Google own YouTube, and of course Google is Gmail, you get that functionality where the Chrome browser
will... It's a single sign-on, right?
It's a single sign-on.
Single sign-on just simply means that once you've signed into one thing, you can go into all your accounts. So if you've got a YouTube account, if you've got a Gmail account, they'll all be signed on from that one spot on the Google Chrome browser, which is a little bit convenient. It's pretty good.
If you use those services, it's certainly convenient.
Definitely. Definitely.
Another thing to point out with getting started is always be aware of what they call the Windows Action Center.
Yeah.
This is a little flag that appears down the bottom right in what's called the taskbar near the clock. And if there's something you need to address on your computer, it will usually pop up and say an important message or an alert or a security issue.
So it's got a little flag.
Yeah, it's a little flag. And probably best not to ignore it.
Best not to ignore the flags. Whenever you see a flag pop up in your start bar, have a look and see what it actually wants you to address, because it could be something very essential.
Now, malicious software or hijacks or viruses tend to want to make low-level changes to your computer. There is a new feature in Windows 7 called UAC.
What does that stand for?
User Access Control.
Right.
What it does is it preempts any change that is made to the low level of your computer and will ask you if you want to do it.
Right.
So a lot of people consider this annoying, but it can save you bacon.
It's an extra layer of protection that I think you should probably use.
It's on by default in Windows 7. So basically the scenarios where you would click yes, it'll pop up and say, do you want to make changes to your computer? If you have initiated something. So if you've just downloaded a program and you want to install it, UAC will pop up and say, do you want to allow changes? There you would probably click yes because you know what's going on.
Definitely. But if you're just browsing a website and it suddenly says to you that this is trying to install something, then that probably should raise a flag of awareness for you and think to yourself, oh, exactly what's going on here and what is it trying to install, and do I want this installed on my computer?
And in that case, you'd click no. Best to err on the side of caution. If you ruin an install, you can always start again. But if you click yes and allow malware on your computer, it can be hard to
redoing an install is much, much easier than reinstalling your entire operating system from scratch.
That's right. So I think if you look at and cover these basic areas, a complex password, make sure your firewall's enabled, your antivirus is up to date. It will always try to connect to the internet and update itself. With a scheduled scan.
And that's really important to make sure, because a couple of the antivirus software stuff will do an initial scan and then it's up to you to set up either a time scan that it will do on a scheduled basis, or you can make it run a scan immediately as soon as you click on it. So if you haven't done a scan for a long time, it's important to do a scan maybe once a week at least. Yeah,
once a week. Some of them are getting quite clever, and now they will notice when your computer is in an idle state, and we'll run the scan in the background, but as soon as you start interacting with things, it'll stop the scan and let you continue, because there can be a performance hit.
Definitely, and you don't want it to interrupt your enjoyment of whatever it is that you're doing. If you're doing, let's say, a Photoshop edit or whatever, then you don't want to have the antivirus scan taking up all of your system resources when you're trying to do something. So making it run in the background, or maybe setting it up so it runs at night if you have your computer on late or whatever, then that's probably the best bet. Just don't let it interfere with your normal day-to-day activities.
Yeah. So they're the basic suite of security concerns you have to look at with a new PC. Ask us for any more information on any of it. So we'll look at a password that wouldn't be recommended because it's too simple. Your favourite footy team might be Port Power. Now that's too simple and would be easy to break.
Why is it easy to break?
Well, it's all lowercase. It's a dictionary word. It could be linked to someone through knowing a little bit about them.
And there's no numbers, there's no extra characters, there's no exclamation points and other bits and pieces, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So even,
what would be a better password?
Well, we could even use that and say something like, I love Port Power. We've got an exclamation point. We might go back and change that I to a 1. We might change
the E
to a 3, and instantly right there, something easy to remember, and
now
it's
that's much more complex, yes?
Yeah.
It's much more complex.
The computer won't be able to guess that.
Right.
So algorithms and programs that are designed to break passwords will find that very difficult.
Excellent.
So that's passwords. We can move on to, now we'll have a look at the firewall settings.
All right, so go into Start.
We'll go to the control panel, and we'll just make that full screen. A lot of things in here. We can see down here we have the Windows Firewall.
Now that doesn't normally come up like that though, does it? When you open up the control panel initially, it'll probably come in.
There's a number of views that you can choose for this.
So if you go to the view section.
So by default it's probably going to come up like that. in your categories. Yeah, I find it a little difficult. It's meant to be simpler, but it's not. So we can change the view again, small
Or large.
or for easy viewability, large. So we can bring up the Windows Firewall here, and it will show us, yes, we've got the green tick on both public and home or work private networks.
So we're protected.
We're protected.
Beautiful.
We'll get a prompt if anything tries to come into this computer. If you were to see a red X, then you'd have more of a problem.
Right.
So now we should have a look at the Action Center.
So you go down to the bottom taskbar.
Down here, and you'll see the little flag.
And it's got an X.
It's got an X there, and it's telling us already by hovering, solve PC issues 2 important messages.
We better check those messages.
Let's have a look what they are. So we'll
open the Action Center.
Open it up, and we can see, oh, they're security related. So spyware and unwanted software protection is out of date. It needs to talk to the internet and get its new updates.
And it's important to have your antivirus software updated as often as possible, yes?
That's right.
Because there are new things that are being pushed out every single day, and they update that to combat those threats, correct?
Yes. By default, most of them, as soon as they sense that there's an internet connection, they'll check.
Yep.
And then these alerts will go away. So the other one down here is, of course, your virus protection, because that's out of date as well.
And this one's running Microsoft Security Essentials.
It is running Security Essentials. Let's have a look at the Security Essentials interface.
Okay.
That's the one under here. Let's see, it's orange and not green.
Right.
Computer status potentially unprotected.
Right.
So if we have a look in there, we can see that the real-time protection is on, but the definitions, the updates, are out of date. So this computer,
it even tells you that exactly. Perfect.
So we need to connect this one to the internet, and then they would go away.
And that would update by default.
Yes.
Yep.
As soon as it senses it.
Yep. So that was just a quick and brief guide to your basic security essentials that you need to have really configured before you go out onto the big wide internet and get yourself into a lot of trouble with identity theft and other things that we've already discussed. And we can go into, obviously, you can go onto our YouTube channel and check out every single bit of this segment at your own leisure, as well as some other bits and pieces that we put up there in order to help you out in this area.